This is CBC Vancouver News.
Strong weekend winds in the interior has fanned flames, increasing wildfire activity, forcing evacuation orders in some remote areas of the north.
It is frustrating that we sort of dealt with these fires once and now we're dealing with them a second time.
And it's not the first time residents in that region have had to evacuate this summer. A North Vancouver woman is speaking out about what she calls a lack of support for those facing fertility issues.
It's putting so much more stress on a woman who is already in a very vulnerable, delicate situation.
Why advocates say more needs to be done to improve fertility care in BC. Tens of thousands of people flocked to Abbotsford to mark one of the holiest days of the year for BC's Sikh community. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. We begin with an update on BC's wildfire situation. Officials say weekend winds in the interior has fanned flames, increasing wildfire activity, forcing evacuation orders in some remote areas of the north. The Cheslata Carrier Nation and the Regional District of Bulkley-Nechako both issued evacuation orders last night due to the out-of-control Wells Creek wildfire, a fire that is now estimated at 7,900 hectares in size. And it's not the first time residents in that region have had to evacuate this summer.
It is frustrating that we sort of dealt with these fires once and now we're dealing with them a second time. And, again, not sort of frustrated with any particular aspect of it. It's just the fact that why is this happening?
BC Wildfire Service says there is some good news in the north. Calmer winds have helped stabilize wildfire growth, but persistent drought conditions could change that.
Temperatures are also returning to seasonal, and overnight humidity and recoveries are improving in most of the province. The one thing is that no notable rainfall is forecasted for the short-term outlook, and this remains a concern for us.
Moving to the Grouse Complex wildfire near West Kelowna, the incident commander there says they're in for the long haul, and it's a matter of weeks, not days, before they can get the fire somewhat contained.
There's been a lot of really great work that was done over the last couple of weeks to get the fire out of the urban interface area, which was largely on the west side of Okanagan Lake. And now we're transitioning into a fire that is largely a wildland fire up into the mountains to the west of the fire area. Particularly the challenging aspect that we're having to this fire now is the southwest corner and the west side of it, which is above the Powers Creek drainage. We have the combination of extreme slopes, cliff edge, very challenging areas to work for crews, but also for any very limited and heavy equipment operations. And Powers is just a scenario that we're trying to avoid it getting into the actual drainage itself. We're not there yet. We're working it quite hard with the aviation assets you see behind us, and the ground crews too. But we are into a different phase of the fire now as we've moved over the last 2.5 weeks.
That grouse complex is made up of 3 wildfires, including the McDougall Creek wildfire that forced thousands to evacuate their homes 2.5 weeks ago. West Kelowna's fire chief was among those who had to evacuate. He says people are finally able to return to their homes.
There's a lot of emotions involved in this whole thing, and some people, had great joy and comfort, and others are suffering, pretty huge loss. And we're there with them, experiencing it alongside them.
Wildfire officials say the focus has now shifted from firefighting to recovery. An evacuation center near West Kelowna has now been replaced by a new resiliency office to help residents impacted by the wildfire navigate the recovery and rebuilding process. Just in time for long weekend travelers, the only highway connecting Port Alberni, Tofino, and Ucluelet with the rest of Vancouver Island has fully reopened. A stretch of Highway 4 had to be closed for nearly 3 months following the Cameron Bluffs wildfire, while crews worked to remove hundreds of dangerous trees and rock debris from the area. The highway reopening comes near the end of the summer tourism season. Earlier this summer, businesses in Tofino and Ucluelet reported an estimated $44 million in lost tourism revenue.
Also state my thanks for all of the local governments, First Nations governments, Port Alberni, Chambers of Commerce, Tofino, Ukiwit, the business community. They've been very, very patient. I know this has been really difficult for residents too, commuting out of the valley to other parts of the island for work. So it's been a monumental disaster for us to cope with and to make safe.
Whether it's military soldiers on the front lines of wildfires in BC, Alberta, and Quebec, the Air Force helping evacuate Yellowknife, or sandbagging after an atmospheric river event, Canada's armed forces are often deployed across the country to help battle climate disasters. And with those natural disasters expected to increase in the future, one former Army commander says the country is in urgent need of a national climate disaster agency.
The gold standard of emergency response at the national level is Japan. They are superb. They have heavy urban search and rescue. They've got firefighter. They've got the expertise for water bombers. They have their own fleet of dedicated resources at the national level, which they allocate out to the various prefectures which need it. They're fully trained professionals, and it's standalone.
Leslie warns it could cost billions to keep the military ready for combat, both overseas and against a worsening climate. But with bases already established across Canada, he says the CAF could step into that role. Passengers on board 2 Air Canada flights at YVR were delayed this afternoon after one plane hit another on the tarmac. The airline says the incident happened while an Air Canada Rogue Airbus was being pushed back from the gate. The Airbus's wingtip made contact with the Jazz Air Canada Express plane that was parked at a nearby gate. YVR says its fire and rescue team responded to the incident and no one was injured. Passengers who were impacted were rebooked onto later flights. And over at Victoria International Airport, at least 50 passengers who were denied boarding on 3 separate Flair Airlines flights on August 26th are getting refunds on tickets. But one air passenger rights advocate says travelers are owed a lot more.
They had to buy a ticket on another airline. Flair has to pay for that. If they incurred meals or overnight accommodation, Flair has to pay for it. If they had longer car rental or car parking expenses, Flair has to pay for it. If somebody missed work as a result, Flair has to pay for it.
In a statement, Flair Airlines says it is taking full responsibility for what happened, but has yet to give a reason as to why the flights were canceled in the first place. After months of struggling to conceive naturally, a North Vancouver woman is speaking out about what she calls a lack of support for those facing fertility issues in BC. So Rab Sandhu reports.
38-year-old North Vancouver resident Lucina Khachatrin and her husband are planning for their second child. After an initial consultation with her family doctor, Khachatrin was referred to a gynecologist who wrote her a referral for an HSG test.
It's basically an X-ray test that is done to check the size, the shape, and the patency of the fallopian tubes of a woman.
She says securing an appointment for the test has been next to impossible.
When I was asking how many women call per day, they say in average 15 women. And it's very frustrating for them to have to reject all these women. But then when I asked how many procedures are performed per day, they said just 1 or 2.
Lucina says the test cannot be pre-booked and testing has to be done within first 10 days of a person's menstrual cycle, leaving a slim window to get the test done.
I've been trying to call every day on the first, the first day that I see my period, and I call to the hospitals, Lionsgate, UBC, Abbotsford, Chilliwack.
This reproductive rights health expert says BC lacks support for people struggling with fertility issues. She says globally 1 in 6 experience fertility issues.
We're seeing a very hard time to get medical tests, to get heard, to be in the queue, to get into the system. We're not looking at 3 to 6 months. We're looking at a year, 2 years before you can even get some answers or clarity.
CBC News reached out to local health authorities for comment, but did not hear back by the deadline. For people like Khachatrin, time is running out.
Everybody is frustrated. It seems like everyone wants to be helpful. Also, don't see any combined, collective action to improve the situation.
Because of that big stigma, there's not big groups of people pounding on legislative doors and picketing and sending letters to their MLAs and politicians and advocating for this.
Khachatran says she is considering going to Alberta for the fertility test, where she says appointments are more readily accessible.
Not being able to secure a common test that is just 30 minutes long is putting so much more stress on a woman who is already in a very vulnerable, delicate situation.
She hopes before she is forced to travel out of province to get the care she needs, BC improves access to fertility care. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, North Vancouver.
The Sikh community marked one of its holiest days of the year today in Abbotsford. As Aviation Senj reports, the gathering was an opportunity for celebration and to highlight more serious issues the community is grappling with.
Known as Nagar Kirtan, this Sunday marked one of the most important religious anniversaries for Sikhs.
So today we're celebrating the Holy Scripture. The Guru Granth Sahib Ji was written on this, it was compiled on this day.
Nagar Kirtan honors the anniversary of the opening of the sacred text of the Sikh religion. For 13-year-old Harbin Singh, the text has a special significance.
I'm a baptized Sikh. In the Sikh tradition, I took Amrit. After reading the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, the Holy Scripture, it's like led me to my pathway and to my where my direction is going.
Nagar Kirtan is also an opportunity for BC's Sikh diaspora to come together.
We are living far away from our home country, so we should unite and we should celebrate togetherness of our community.
We are enjoying it, we are loving it. Everything is so good. The weather is perfect, the people are perfect.
Or to show off their finest celebratory clothing, or even to fill their bellies with good food.
I don't know what this is, but it's really good.
It's good? You like it?
Yeah, it's good.
I put the masala.
Potato.
Okay, I put it inside.
Put it inside, yeah.
And then...
And the water, sweet and sour water.
Oh, it's leaking a little bit.
Yes.
And then the whole thing.
Yeah, put the whole thing's in your mouth though. There you go. That's what we call golgappa and also we call pani puri.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Right.
But among the celebratory atmosphere, there are also more serious issues on display, like calls for justice after the assassination of a Surrey temple leader in June, and reminders about the unofficial referendum vote for an independent Sikh state in India. The gathering was also an opportunity to help loved ones abroad.
Punjab's been really devastated by Punjab flood. The floods came, and it's been about 2 months. They've been really devastating. A lot of people have been displaced.
A message of unity and helping others present throughout the celebrations. Aviation Senj, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, you may not know his name, but you've probably been in one of his buildings. Vancouver-born Raymond Moriyama was one of Canada's greatest architects, a legacy that's being honored tonight after his death at 93. From the curvature of the Toronto Reference Library to the spacious simplicity of the Canadian Embassy in Tokyo, Joel Ballard shows us how Moriyama left his mark.
Outside of the Nikkei National Museum, a celebration of Japanese culture. Yet for some, there's also a moment of remembrance for the visionary behind this building's design.
I feel a great honor to be in a place Raymond Moriyama designed, and the responsibility to preserve his legacy, to preserve his story, and that of Japanese Canadians across the country.
Moriyama was born in Vancouver, but during World War II, his family was sent to an internment camp.
The struggle I went through was, what does that mean, to be a Canadian and have your own country turn its back on you. The conclusion I reached was that you cannot hate your own country. It just, rots you inside.
It was there that Moriyama was inspired to design and build his first structure.
So here you'll see a map, a childhood drawing of the location of his first treehouse.
A small dot on a map, the start of a monumental career. Many of Moriyama's most famous designs left their mark on Canada's landscape. The Canadian War Museum, Ottawa's City Hall, the Ontario Science Centre.
Moriyama was one of the people who invented this kind of hands-on experiential museum when before this museums were very, very static.
Sommer says it was this design that launched Moriyama's career to new heights.
It's a spectacular example of what can happen when a society is willing to take a risk on a bright and talented young mind.
Experts say Moriyama was a key player during the golden age of Canadian architecture, helping transform the look of Canada from a colonial nation to a diverse, multicultural country.
With Moriyama's buildings, the really beautiful thing is you don't have to know much, you just have to feel it. You step into the Toronto Reference Library and you feel that this is an inclusive space where everybody is welcome.
On Saturday, Moriyama's firm announced his passing. But back in Burnaby, amid the celebrations, Moriyama's legacy lives strong, forever cemented. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Burnaby.
Welcome them and provide them with some, compassion and hope and comfort. And
Yellowknife evacuees are heading home. How people are helping them along the way. That story is next. Residents of Yellowknife are getting ready to go home. Essential workers can return starting Monday, the general public on Wednesday. But it will be a long trip with a few resources along the way. The CBC's Juanita Taylor has this report.
So most important thing, we got the pillow.
This Yellowknifer is ready to go home.
I'm planning to leave like real early Wednesday to get there as fast as I can before everyone going there.
When the evacuation order is lifted, Hamill and thousands of others who have been staying in Alberta and Manitoba will head north. Yellowknife's mayor is warning people to be prepared in case the fires flare up again.
Having some food and water in your vehicle. And just recognizing that a lot of times, I know when folks drive Edmonton to Yellowknife, they like to stop off in High Level and stay for the night. That might not be an option.
We have 999 hotel rooms, and every one of them's booked.
Here in High Level, Alberta, businesses are stocking up, and the evacuation centre has 300 cots for people to stop and rest.
We'll just welcome them and provide them with some, compassion and hope and comfort, and so we're ready for them.
I don't know how many people could accommodate, lots.
Other Northerners are also jumping in to help. Jane Groenewagen is opening up her ranch for Yellowknife campers for free.
We're very happy to be able to help people out, and some people have asked us about paying, and I go, no, it's this is just our little part.
But not everyone is rushing to get home. Elise Legatte has cancer. She's worried about going back to limited health services.
I'll just get the care that I need and the tests that I need and not be a burden.
The territorial government says some medical services won't be online for a month. Schools are also going to take some time to get up and running. And the mayor says Yellowknife doesn't look the same. There's a 100-meter fire break circling the city. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, High Level, Alberta.
Here we have a live shot of Cambie Street and City Hall far in the background. I'll have your full forecast coming up next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On September 16th, join CBC Vancouver at the second annual Come Toward the Fire, a free outdoor festival celebrating Indigenous community, culture, and creativity. Visit cometowardthefire.com. And September is Literacy Month. Have fun and support the cause by joining CBC Vancouver's Dan Burrett at Dakota's Team Trivia Challenge on September 27th. For tickets, register at dakota.ca.
All right, it is time now to take a look at our full forecast. Let's begin with the current temperatures around the region. Starting up in West Vancouver, 14 degrees currently, 15 at the airport, 16 in Pitt Meadows, a little cooler in Abbotsford at 15 degrees. Moving into tomorrow, let's start off with a warning that there is going to be some increased smoke in the province's northern areas. That's due to those wildfires and those winds spreading across the province. Dease Lake, 14 degrees is your high for tomorrow, 19 degrees in Prince George. Port Hardy is going to see a high of 15 degrees and a lot of cloud, a little more precipitation in Prince Rupert with a high of 14. And down in Kelowna, a high of 22 with a mix of sun and clouds. Here in Metro Vancouver, we're going to see that rain stick around for Monday and Tuesday. It's going to be about 30-40% showers on those days. So 21 degrees tomorrow, 20 degrees on Tuesday. That's going to stick with us, but become a little sunnier till Friday, a high of 21. For the first time in more than 2 decades, the Canadian men's basketball team has booked a ticket to the Olympics. They clinched the berth today with a victory over Spain at basketball's World Cup. As the CBC's Kwabene Oduro has the story.
Canada fights back and takes down Spain.
It's a moment 2 decades in the making, and it happened in stunning fashion.
Oh my goodness, that the whole morning we were all tense, we were all watching the game, but what a feeling.
Canada was down in the fourth quarter and came back to win 88-85 over Spain. But perhaps more importantly,
Canada will play in the Olympics next year in Paris.
This is the first time since the 2000s Canada men's basketball has qualified for the Olympics.
The golden era is once again on the rise again with basketball in Canada.
The men's team was not the only team eyeing an Olympic berth. In downtown Montreal, a 3-on-3 women's basketball tournament took place featuring countries from all over the world. Team Canada won, getting them one step closer to the Olympics.
There's just a lot of supporters of basketball in Canada, and for the men to go out and do the job, I know they're happy. I know the fans are happy, and we're happy to be there, hopefully to support them at the Olympics.
Dwight Walton played for Canada in the 1988 Olympics in Seoul. Walton says off-court changes led to this moment.
They've changed the whole landscape of the program, from top to bottom, from grassroots coaching upwards to the senior level program, to having a diverse front office, men and women, different ethnicities, different ideas.
But Walton says Canada can't take its foot off the gas.
And if you want to be successful, you have to commit yourself to the process. It's a long one, it's a long journey, but as you can see, it's definitely profitable towards the end, especially if you get to your goal.
With the berth in the Olympics already clinched, Canada basketball has some unfinished work at the FIBA World Cup. Their journey continues in the quarterfinals on Wednesday against a very tough Slovenian team. Kwabene Oduro, CBC News, Montreal.
That is your late news for this Sunday. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For news anytime, visit our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Have a great night.